a system, everything's very systematic, very regimented, to establish the cost of labor and material for the project. And so we look at a number of things there. So what makes a good estimator? I'm going to move this, if that's okay. So what makes a good estimator? We're looking for that regimented, detailed, organized sort of person. The competitive bid marketplace is interesting because it's self-regulating, it's self-policing. So if you forget things that are on the drawings, you're going to get work, but you're going to lose money and you go out of business. If you add things that aren't on the drawings and you become too expensive, you don't get work and you go out of business. And so trying to find the right spot where you know what the costs are, you have everything covered, you have the amount of profit the marketplace can bear, that's the only way you survive. And so there's always a balance. You're always looking at previous estimates and saying, were we too expensive? How did we fare in the marketplace? You're looking at work that's underway, work that's completed, and you're looking to, what mistakes did we make? Did we have the right labor units? Did we have the right material costs? You're always trying to stay in that sweet spot of not taking it too cheap, but not getting work because you're too expensive. So attention to detail, being organized, thorough, and then obviously experience and training all factors in. So those are the real key things about being an estimator. So, Dave?
For example, I think a little bit different. There's a lot of ways you can come into the business and different things you can do. This is, specific to Parsons and probably a lot of the contractors. Our favorite way in is people that are in design. And you see, they either come in as a CAD tech or a project coordinator, and then they work their way into a designer. And when we say CAD tech, that's going to be, doing the CAD work for another designer and getting it onto the drawing. Project coordinators will work for either the designers or the project managers or project engineers on the job site. What they're going to do is go through and check light fixture schedules against labs. They're going to check door hardware schedules to see which ones need electric, which ones don't. The hospitals will be going through and go through equipment lists and make sure that everything's accounted for on the drawing, so when we actually hit the job site, that we're not digging for information and go back and go through it again. Our coordination really tries to do is when we come to a ceiling, we come through once. We start from one end, we go to the other. We got the telephone conduit in there, we got equipment conduits, we got the lighting, we got the power, we got everything in there. We don't want to come through and then someone grabs another print and goes, oh, that rack's not big enough, you didn't get the other 3 conduits in. So now we have to run another one. The coordinator will get involved with the bill in that.
And we spend a lot of time looking at that. The electricians cost $70 an hour. And so every hour you spend coordinating drawings, putting together the documents, if you can save an electrician hour more money ahead, more likely you're going to save probably 10 electrician hours for every hour you spend. And so that's that's how we survive, that's how we keep going. One other thing I should have mentioned earlier, this isn't us speaking, so if you have questions, please interrupt us, raise your hand. We'd much rather this be a conversation and not just, Dave, you present a show. So if you have any questions as we go, we're going to look to you. You work for us. You got to help us out here. So.
Now, the BIM modeling becomes a really big part of things. What you have to understand is what I often say is that somebody was doing this. They were doing it on a piece of cardboard. They were doing it somewhere. They were figuring out how they were going to run these pipes and at what level above the ceiling, what was going to hit what, where there were conflicts, but it wasn't coming together on drawings. And these things, a lot of times, those conflicts would happen out in the field with pipes and ductwork and concrete, and they weren't foreseen. I mean, our big thing competitive is to see these items and be able to put things in a very orderly fashion. So anyway, that's one we is now working at becoming a project manager down the path. But each of these parts, whether it be a designer, a project coordinator, or if you move in and you start being a project engineer, and give you a little insight of what that is. That's coming on the job site usually and being an assistant to the project manager. And it's, again, you're processing a lot of paper.
You're doing the shop drawings submittals, you're looking at any of the RFPs, you're generating RFPs, you're asking questions of the owner, the engineer, trying to clarify all of that scope on the job site. That's there.
When we say RFP, we mean request for proposal. We would send it to the distribution people or to the lighting people. So we're giving them a request to come back and give us a price. So, and the project engineer, on the larger jobs like right now, we're doing a project out in Chaska. One guy who's in charge of the documents, and that is a continual flow of new documents coming onto the projects, and just keeping all the electricians, what is there else in Chaska? 35, so you have several groups, and keeping them with updated documents and knowing they have updated documents is quite a job in itself, because you've got to keep distributing and keep updating things. So that becomes part of that project engineer's responsibility. The other way, or other path up to the company is with estimating. In estimating, you can either go through 10 weeks of it, which actually we make everybody that's going to be a project engineer or is heading towards being a project manager has to spend at least 10 weeks in estimating to learn our system. So to go through that, and we'll talk about the estimating more, and this is all about. We'll try to be very uniform so that we can do these estimates. And it becomes extremely important that everybody's doing things the same way. Because, like, tomorrow morning I'll walk in and estimate with you, and I'll only be there for the last hour. And for me to be able to understand the estimate and walk through it, they should all look alike in the way the labor's organized, what the fixtures are, how it's taken off, we use color coding, different things. So anyway, the estimator can move over to project manager after he goes through the course, or he can become an estimator for the company. There's several people that take full-time estimating, and it's a very rewarding. But it also gives you a little change in what you're doing. Or if you're in project management, you can slide over and get on a project. You might be there for 2.5, 3 years if you're on the big work, and it can take you out of the marketplace, so to speak, meeting people. When there's other people that will go into project management, small projects, and that might for us mean something less than $500,000, sometimes into $1 million job. But when they're doing that, you tend to develop more of a customer base, because you can always see your customer. You're not tied up on one job with one customer.
And quite frequently, anybody in that top level has done multiple jobs at the next level down. So as a project manager, when I was a project manager, I had spent a lot of time in design, I had spent time as an estimator, I had spent time as a project engineer, and that's very typical. That it isn't just you stay on your one little career path and you come up to whatever that top level box you're looking at. The best estimators have been involved with the field, have been involved with design, best project managers have had contacts on both sides. So the second level of boxes, you need many of those different tasks, and you need to do many of those different tasks in order to continue to move up.
Yeah, and I reader, go ahead.
UH2 project rep, so it's the 2 8-story office buildings that are going up at, 169 and 212? Maybe. I don't know. I know how to drag that. Yeah, so two
desired path to come through for estimating, project management, and design, new design, because it is very intuitive that somebody knows what someone else is trying to draw. I mean, when we're doing an estimate, you understand the design so that you can find the parts, because a lot of the mistakes and a lot of the insight comes from people that understand the job. I shouldn't say mistakes. When I say mistakes, it's when they don't understand the job. And when you understand the job, you're going to be more competitive.
Well, the other thing too is you bring your own design experience to bear. And so the engineer may have shown it one way. The engineer showing it to you. At the end of the day, they want a light fixture there and they want to clear it. And so if you've got a good experience in design, you can look at it and go, they've shown it to go this way, which is a lot more expensive than making it this way. And you're allowed to do that as means and methods, but you need to have the design background to understand that. So looking at the estimate process, and we'll touch on this a little bit further, but once again, it's that methodical processing through the drawings to be able to put together the bid that we're looking at. And so usually most things will come in a request for price RFP, that's what RFP is. So sometimes it's a lump sum bid, sometimes it's a fee proposal, they take different flavors, but ultimately the owner, the contractor, is trying to have you compete against you, and they've got some framework with which they're going to look at the two prices and they're going to pick what they perceive to be the best value. So once you get the information, obviously you need to get the drawings, the specifications, all the information you have, and review the specifications. Quite often there will be a contract that will be attached to it, and so the general contractor will give you that ahead of time so that you can see what your markups can be, how change orders are processed, what your risks are. Some general contractors will make you responsible for everything under the sun, and so you need to take that into account when you're doing the estimate. Some general contractors are different. Some owners have requirements, work hours, whatever. There's a whole bunch of stuff that can limit the contract. You obviously need to organize the documentation and set up the estimate. So once you've got that, you need to distribute out. There's a large quantity of things that we price internally. So, conduit, receptacles, devices, all of that comes out of our material database. It's something that we've done for years. We have the information and we get pricing periodically on a company basis. But any of the specific things to the project, so whether you're looking at the power distribution, the light fixtures, the generators, the UPS, the PUs, the bus duct, all of the things on the job you were showing us, all of that you go out and get multiple quotes for. And so you try to get that out to your respective bidders on the material side, as well as subcontractor, fire alarm, lightning protection, your example there, so that they have time to prepare their bid, because there's going to be multiple people bidding the light fixtures that are going to bid to you. You're going to take the most competitive one and then put that into your estimate. Identify and enter labor rates. We can work all the way through all over the country, and so you have to be looking at what are the labor rates in a specific marketplace. You also need to start thinking about how are we going to structure this job. Is it just a foreman and 3 journeymen? That has a different price point than a general foreman, 3 foremen, 15 journeymen, and 15 apprentices. So you need to be looking at what are the company resources, what are the resources of the local you're working in, and what's your composite labor rate going to be. And then obviously in here you perform the takeoff, which sounds like you'll be giving in a class up there, but it's actually counting the fixtures, deciding how long the feeder lengths are, how many wires go in that pipe, is it underground, is it overhead, what's your mounting detail, what's the type of conduit, right? I mean, all of these details that go into that estimate. There's also, as you can see, there's a loop around on the side, which it says provide input design for schematic development. So on a project that's fully engineered by somebody else, quite often during the bid process, if we see things that they've designed that there are more cost-effective ways of doing that, you'll propose that in bid time, once again, trying to get a competitive edge. So if you and your competitors do something that gets the owner the same thing at the end of the day, that might be the edge that gives you the job. If it's a project where there's just a schematic narrative, you're looking at, okay, how are we going to design this? So your little project here might say that we've got this equipment to feed, we have this need for a data center, but there might not be any drawings. It might be a 10-page text document that says this is what we're looking for. So that whole design part of it is figuring out someone's got to draw up what's the one line going to look like, and that may be very different from what your competitor is. And so that's that design part. So even if it's fully engineered, there's a design part to it, or if it's a design build project, that might be part of what you're doing there. Then you get towards the end of the job, you receive the quotes from the vendors and the commodity pricing, and ultimately get to the review. And so everything prior to that bottom box was trying to identify, like I said earlier, what are the raw costs? What's this job going to cost us to do? And that's what you're looking at all through there, and we'll talk about the review process in a little bit. Any questions? Yes? We use Estimating for the base estimating activity for change orders once we have the job ready and running. The project managers, at the moment I don't really have them in slide count, but we have our estimating partners slide count. Actually, usually we're doing on the screen. I can't think of any times they've physically printed out a hard copy. Most of our bid reviews are done with, a screen about that size, and so there's a constant flipping between the paper drawings that are on the desk, the live count, and the estimate itself, as well as the 500 emails and quotes and the rest of the junk you get.
We have brought the live count to introduce design build project. So we will show what it is this figure. It's usually a nice, colorful drawing. It's nice to put out on the desk and walk through the systems or lighting. Yeah. Depends on the job, depends on the customer, depends on the local. Quite often we'll actually do both. We found that what a light fixture costs in Minnesota is different than what a light fixture costs in Florida, and it isn't always cheaper here. And so we usually look at what the local market is. Quite often companies like Graybar have a national presence, and so they will certainly be in play. But if you have Bob's Electric Supply that happens to be really strong in a given market, we'll do that research and we'll have a lot of times on out-of-town work with the preference by the ownership who would like to be a hospital, that we do a shared business with the local vendors. Even if we negotiate with a square deal here, we can run it through Graybar or Preston Electric in Chicago.
or is doing the engineering and we're just the contractor. Design, build, doing the engineering, paying for the contract.
The third one, conceptual, that's a lot of what I get involved with. That might be when somebody calls up, they want to have a 400-bed hospital facility, like in Wyoming. We're thinking it's going to be 380,000 square feet. These are the functions we're going to have. This is how many OR rooms we have. And they'll tell me some of this stuff, and then they'll say, what do you think the electrical budget for that? And I'll go into a little bit, but it's these spreadsheets, and we'll go through and we'll give them the proposal, and we try to be pretty specific on what type of building that is. And we see a lot of this going on, and it's really the first step usually in finding out what the right amount of money. So, or finding out how much it is they should go get. I do a lot of tribal work, and if they're going to build a casino somewhere, they really want to know, what it's going to cost, because they got to line up the financing. They pretty much might understand it to be at the marketplace that they can pay for it, but they don't want to start with something thinking it's 20 million and ending up needing 40 million, stopping the project. So the conceptual estimate is so important. All right, plan spec. Touched on this a little before, but review the plan, read all the notes, review the drawings from all the disciplines. The thing that is really important with an estimator is to define the scope and make sure that you define what it is are the documents. I see some mistakes that happen. People don't look at some of the documents and you find out that one of the documents it says that try to think of a mistake.
On part of the plan, it'll show a light fixture, and there'll be a keynote saying light fixture suspended from deck 25 feet above. Doesn't show up anywhere in the electrical plans, but when it's time to do that installation, the engineer or architect will point that out. If you didn't have your estimate, you get to provide it for free.
Yeah, and then sometimes you'll find parking controlled by electrical contractor. Some little note, it's $75,000 item. It's going to refer to as you keep following the path. Suddenly you're in a different section of work that's not in the 2,600 or 60,000. So you really have to read through it. I think one of the earlier slides said proficient reading comprehension. Well, you get into some of these government work jobs and you got 12,000 pages where you gotta be able to look at things and not read them, because you haven't got that kind of time, but you have to be able to pull out keywords, and the better you get at it, the better an estimator can be able to follow. And as you learn the project, then you find the places where mistakes happen. That's unfortunate part of business. So you review the plan, you review the specifications. The front end is probably going to be simple things like when is it due and how is it supposed to get there. Because sometimes you can email them, sometimes you have to hand deliver them. They have to be signed, and then you get a bid bond with them, which might take you a day and a half to get. So you have to read the front end and find out what it is that's going to be. Look for mold. A lot of times there's things missing, and it might be an opportunity or it might be something that you have to cover depending on what the job is. If they're looking for sometimes the lighting might all be on the architectural schematic plans. If you go to the electrical and somebody's missed it or thought that one area was a two-story area and they've only got the upper lights. Maybe there's a whole other double lighting or something. So as you review things, you kind of look for holes. Is there power for equipment? If you go through the mechanical list, does it jive with the electrical connection? A lot of things you get a clarification because so you find these discrepancies. Now you're right. Usually they have a time period these questions for clarification, and sometimes there'd be a lot of them. They usually copy all the bidders with design build. A lot of times we will bid them with supplemental drawings. We have a design department put together. We'll have to put a land plan together. And maybe not everything, but a lot of it will describe in the narrative. We might tell them that it's a 2,000-year service for distribution as required for the roads indicated as mechanical connections or metropolitan mechanical plans. And so we can clarify it and get through all the different parts. We'll try to really be clear on the major function, how big the generator is, what size the UPS is, and maybe we can state the balances or the bounds that are included in the light fixtures so that it helps the reviewing parties to understand and be able to look at our bid and compare it to the bid.
And even to a greater extent than plan and spec, the owner and general contractor are in the inspection and design build to have everything covered. So with plan and spec, you have the argument sometimes you want it, sometimes you lose it, that, this light fixture wasn't shown, therefore we didn't have it, we deserve to change it. In design build, they're going to be very clear. Hey, you were the designer, you had the information, you got that light fixture included. So, being able to understand, even though there's limited information, what everything is needed to put together that bid, you need to be able to put it together, whether it's shown or not. They're looking at you, the expert, to understand what it takes to build this building.
And one of the most important parts of that proposal letter is going to be what I call clarification and exceptions. And basically, it might be as simple as saying you cannot have company service charges. Well, I think it'd be $30,000 to bring power to the site. And somebody's got to have it. You've got to clarify that you don't. Maybe that fee isn't even available, but at least you're making it clear of what you have and what you don't have. And that's part of the proposal process. And sometimes we'll write the proposal before we do the estimate, so that we can actually walk through the estimate or the proposal as an outline to the estimate, so that we can go through each part and make sure we've got everything covered. And it's a very useful way of writing that proposal too, because you've got it written, you start the estimate, and you keep coming back to the proposal, changing it, so that you include everything and you're very clear to the reviewer.
Any questions on those two types, and we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of estimating here in a second. It really depends on the project and what you're looking at. And so right now, we're proposing on a design build project that the contract that will come out of it will be lump sum. So they're expecting our numbers to be very exact. They will be getting other proposals from other companies, and I'm pretty sure low prices will be. So it will come down to the scope, but that's going to be where that's at. There's other projects we're brought into design build where you're brought in a very conceptual level, and so we don't have a guaranteed maximum price. This building isn't going to cost more than $3,278,500. But as the design gets evolved, you price it at multiple iterations. You have to account for, well, lighting went up, but distribution went down. So here's our new team that eventually works its way to a hard money. So it really depends.
The term GMP, guaranteed maximum price, there's a lot of, we get a lot of projects that way, and what that really means is what it says, guaranteed maximum price. So if the lighting goes up, we have to find something else to bring down, because at the end of the day, we've got to stay within the borders of that guaranteed maximum price. A lot. We have quite a bit of bids. I mean, we put bids together comparing to the previous job. We also, for instance, in a hospital, we will have reaction time per 1,000 square feet, how much branch circuit wire you should see, how much number 10 or 12 should you see on per 1,000 square feet.
And it varies wildly, then you go why. And sometimes there's a reason why. They're using a different wiring method, the layout's different, it's more efficient, it's less efficient. But
Sometimes it's because someone missed a digit on an input.
and sometimes it's because someone doesn't do it.
And then hopefully you find it. So, we usually configure that, if there's going to be something in the area, light fixture for every 39 square feet of the hospital, you're going to see that. It's not going to vary that much. You might get down to 34 or something really fancy. You might get to 42, 43 if it's something that's really economically viable. So we have a lot of numbers like that in our database. We cross-check, and that happens during the review process. And we'll move on to this. Yeah, we're just talking about software there, and there are several different kinds. We used to use MC Square, but we don't do that anymore. One of the things we do, looking better right here. One of the things we do is we color code as we take off. So we will use one color for lighting, one color for fire alarm, another color for branch distribution. And what we usually ask everyone to do is on the drawing itself, we have them make their own matrix on the side of the drawing of everything they take off on the sheet instead of using spreadsheets. Because when we do our review, then we enter the jobs per sheet. So if something is out of whack or we're looking for something, we can immediately identify what sheet it's on, flip it open, look at it, and then we can look at the takeoff for that sheet. And so we write it over to the side, and then as they enter into the system, they mark them off. And that's just a pathology where we do. Some people do it quite different, if you're doing it online, you wouldn't use that system. But you'd still be putting it per sheet.
This particular one happens to be by hand. But on live count, they use colors, they mark it off in a similar way using live count.
Credit drawing.
And once again, it could be design build, it could be plan and spec. So that might be a drawing we generated, that might be a pencil sketch, right? There's been projects that we've budgeted, we've priced where I'll hand draw a price or I'll hand draw one line, give it to estimating and say, here, this is what we're basing the bid on. And so they'll mark up my hand sketch and we'll go with it from there. So you do the same process regardless of where the increase rate.
A lot of times, even when you get the picture quotes in, invariably, if there's multiple people bidding it on a plan spec job, you're going to have variances in counts. If somebody counted an A or B or miscounted or whatever. So we get the counts in and people will bid them to us and they'll use someone else's counts. We look at compared to ours and go, why is there 10 more B's on this quote than what we had in our bid? So we might flip through the sheets to see where the two fixtures, and maybe do a recount on the pages, especially if they're $5,000 fixtures. So it's just another method of the reason we put things right on the sheets problems, there's a judgment. Right? Simple things like not understanding height of the room, thinking you're doing something in a half hour when it takes a day. There's a lot of different areas of judgment and just what is being described by the question today. Core system tracking and transferring information. I talked about we write things on the side of the sheet. You know, are you checking off one at a time as you enter, or are you going to check things you can type them all in and then cross them all off so it looks like you did that? That's where problems start to come. And people check their own work, and it ain't seem to take it. So, stress and time constraints. Probably that's what I was talking about. Again, they're getting so you can have the information together those last 3 hours. But sometimes you will be working through the weekend to get an estimate done. And it's just what it takes. And that's part of the job as an estimator is getting it done. And it's very important to get it done ahead of time so that you can check it. So,
you live your life on a 2-week deadline. This project is due next weekend on Thursday. When that one's done, the next one rolls in on Friday, and that's due a week and a half on Thursday.
scale around on the drawing. Well, you know, people have written off the internet and different things, and they don't check, you know, what the drawings say. It may not be indeed what you printed, but so you have to really be careful of that. I mean, I've seen one of the foolishest mistakes I've seen is where the engineer drew up the mechanical room detail in the center of a gym, put a little line under it, drew up a quarter scale and showed these pieces of equipment there. Well, this room was not in the middle of the gym on the top. It was off in the corner, and the distribution was down here in the other corner. And one of the estimators ran a feeder over in the center and looked at the equipment. Well, all the feeders were half as long as they had to be. He was using the scale from the bottom and thinking the detail was some room at the top of the gym. I don't know, fair judgment.
You know, the quotes part too is an art form unto itself. And we talked about the chaos of those last 3 hours. So nobody will give you quotes prior to about 2 minutes before the bid's due, because everybody's concerned that, you know, their price is going to get used against somebody else. They're going to have the low price, but they're not going to get the job because somebody else gets some feedback that the price is $10,000 and their price now becomes $9,750. And so it goes to the organization, but it also goes to being able to have a method where you're going to get 4 gear quotes, you're going to get 5 lighting quotes, you're going to get all of this information that's going to come in that last hour and 2 hours before the job. Now, a lot of it you can ask for ahead of time. So, for instance, the gear quotes we'll ask for, give us your bill of material, give us all the information, don't give us the price, but just give us your scope, so that we can make sure your scope's right, so that an hour before the bid, you send in a price, we go, okay, yes, we know you have this problem, we don't have to do time to do that part. But that is definitely a huge part of trying to wrap up that estimate and getting that information pulled together in those last minutes is that whole massive quote. Quoting subcontractors as well as material vendors, distributors, wholesale houses.
A lot of the quotes, they almost all are not for the same thing. So you have to do a spreadsheet and look at them. You know, if you get a gear quote from one person, they might have loose disconnects in there, they might not. They might have starters in there, they might not. Another person might have it all in. They both say lot price at the bottom, so it becomes difficult to understand what price is though. So you go back to your estimate, what do we have in for the disconnects? So you have to do some manual math, or you call them up and ask for a breakout if they'll give it to you for different parts. But you have to do that comparison. Lighting, one lighting guy will include motion detectors and controls, and another budgetary things and say that the average branch circuit for a building is $2.80 a square foot. But to get a true estimate, you have to have counts on everything. And that's, to bring it down, that's where we had really tried to stay away from the square foot analysis. But that is probably the place for square foot analysis is on conceptual estimates and very budgetary information.
Any other questions about full takeoff? We use revenue full takeoff, but in takeoff also, right? So we've started doing a little bit more. Right now, we're doing a design build project for design build project where we were awarded the project on a lump sum basis, but as design build. So Michelle Cooley had done a performance set of plans that identified this sort of light fixture, this many, but everything changes in the design process. And so we have to price against our previous budget and say, okay, here's what changed. We've added these fixtures, we subtracted that, and therefore this price has changed. And so we've used Revit for that because we're drawing with Revit to clarify that data. So it's kind of a special instance where it would need to be a design build project where we've drawn the Revit model. And so we've got that information available to us. From what I understand of Revit, I'm not a Revit master. I don't know how comfortable we would be taking a Revit model from a third party and using that for our takeoff, because depending on how they enter the information and how they model it, could very well adjust counts, adjust lengths, adjust some of that information. So I don't know how comfortable we would be if we didn't control the origination of the project.
If we had problems where we use counts, I mean, where somebody grabs a C fixture, copies it on, and changes it to A, well, it counts as C. And it might say A on the drawing, you won't see that. So those kind of things when people are not disciplined in the design department, then you will screw up the counts and you can't catch it. The model's been altered. Next.
Dave's mastery, conceptual budget.
A lot of what we get involved in, I talked a little earlier too about that these owners or groups are looking to put a building up and they're really trying to decide how big that building can be, whether it can fall in the budget, what kind of a loan they should be going after with a banking group or an investment group. So they're looking very early and they don't have very much information on just what the building is going to be. So they're, a hotel, or now. They started out with very limited information, square footage, color, on the rooms, and they gave me a suite count, and I had an idea of what was going to be a pool, a couple bars, and a conference room, and I had an idea of where to get the conference. I gave them a budget price, and I gave them a breakdown of what that would account for. And that was really looking at a couple others. We had done the Hilton in town, I finished one down in Fort Sill, Apache Casino Hotel. We took a look at that. We looked at another California, Spokane, and then we gave them the price on that. And then they came back and said, well, now we want to be a Hyatt. Take a look at this book. So they decided somewhere in there that they had that reasonable area of money. But now we look at Hyatt and go, well, hey, these guys are a little different. They want 3 circuits in a room. They want 2 lights over there, plus a light here, light. You multiply times 300, and all of a sudden you start to talk about a few $100,000, and then you give them the next level of estimate. But when you work through these things, you start with the conceptual, and then maybe you're looking at the design development, and then you get into the construction drawings, and then working on the construction.
And conceptual budgets take all sorts of shapes. So Dave's talked about hospitals, he's talked about hotels. My side's on the mission critical data center side. And so I've done budgets based upon a scope narrative that has been north of $45 million, which is a conceptual budget, same sort of specialty I have. Go about it in a very different way because almost all of the money in my world lives on the one line. And so some of the different ways. Obviously, the historical data, Dave and I are both talking from the historical aspect of what's the type of project. I guess just touch on the bottom part, RS means. General contractors would use this as certainly a tool that's available where you're going to make this lab room and they want to just generate a quick unit price for it. You can go to the RS means book and say, okay, light fixture would be this much to install, it's this much conduit, this much wire, you can generate a unit price out of it. Not something typically we do, but does happen every once in a while.
So sometimes we look at the RS means to see what they have to say, especially if we know the general is looking at it when we're doing change orders. Because we know where their perspective is when they're looking at something. The receptacle should cost $180 or something. You better not do that $280. So you might look at the RS means to see what the average is, because they'll give you an average for the columns are. It will be easy, medium, hard. It's different average. So RS means is a unit price calculator. So a while back, I was asked to put together a project for something dollars. And again, this is the deal where we didn't have much time. We were really trying to understand, are we talking about a $20 million thing, like $50 million, $100 million? What is the electrical for this building? And all they had was on 8.5 by 11s, about 5 of them. That was the amount of layout, but they called out what the different rooms were, and then I had some plans on the site. So I went through, and typically what we do is we try to list the square footage on something like that. We have the lighting, cost per square foot, and it's really just a massive spreadsheet. We come across branch power cost per square foot, mechanical cost.
There's a whole bunch of columns.
There's actually, this thing goes on, it's got about 12, 15 columns, and that's typically where I start with a hospital or a casino. You know, we don't just say a casino is $39 a square foot. We have the parts, and that's, then as we work through the budget, through this concept, now we have a number for the lighting. So when we do the hard takeoff, and we go, where were we at? Are we tracking the right line? Or, you know, Dave screwed up or John screwed up? Are we doing something we don't have to do here? So, and then it helps us manage the budget. You're not managing the big budget. You can't really manage the $49 a square foot. You have to manage the $3 a square foot part to get there. So that's kind of, this is how we usually start out my conceptual budget. It's a pretty elaborate spreadsheet.
How far off you are from the actual estimate?
Well, I like to think I'm dead on. It's usually scope changes that change that, but they're usually pretty close. I mean, a lot of times we'll turn this in, and stuff will say, you know, this is for budgeting only, get it turned in. But then when they look over at it, if you want this job, can you split that as a GMP? You know, and my answer better be yes. And so we'll manage that as a GMP. They will come out with things, you know, what if we drop the pool? You know, what if we do this? And then we start to vary some things around. I think we're very close. It's what we do.
Same on my side, we're looking at plus or minus 5%, and then plus 5%. Does that change from part to part?
Well, that's, that was one right here.
And this is much more of an art. This is, you know, the other estimate where you got the full takeoff is a science. This is much more of an art where it's experience and lots of.
One has to be careful with it. I mean, these are labor and material pricing. In general, you'll find that the northern states, the labor costs more, the productivity is way up. If you try to get something done in Oklahoma, it's Phoenix, Miami, I mean, it does take twice as many people. It is, they were slow. And they're not so smart. It does seem like they need more guidance. They're not trained as well. They don't want to do anything that cut the hours down. They can be very difficult to work with. The first one is the cost per square foot. Just multiplying 12 times by to get that, yeah. So usually it's a square foot multiplier. Some of it, like on the top, that's a lot because we didn't have the information, but in general, the building was big and we usually figured the parking lot. We needed to have a placeholder at any rate and give them a lighting number. We didn't know how much we were going to have to replace on this track, what they were going to do with the parking. They may choose not to do anything in their first home because then fancy it later. It's different at different levels.
Depending on the general theme of the project, sometimes we'll actually give them, not necessarily the columns, but we'll give them the far right-hand column. So they know we've got a $9 million budget for building one, and it's $2.8 million for the light. And so we're tracked to that as we go through the process, and we maintain that same breakdown through each level of design, through each iteration.
Yeah, usually I'll hide the square foot number, just get it out of there. For one thing, it shortens it up, and it takes away a level of questions. And if they want to drill into it, we can talk about it. Sometimes I hide the whole thing and only show this part, which just gives them the breakdown per area. Depends what they're looking for. Oh, you can develop a lot more questions. And the other thing is that sometimes it can, you're feeding your information to your competitor. It's the general, out in Suffolk, Virginia, may want to work with somebody out there, but they know they don't have the expertise. They might want to use my expertise for free and feed it to the local guy and mix me out at some point. And I've been protected with that activity.
But also sometimes your competitor gives them just the bottom right-hand number. You give them this breakdown. You're the one talking to them. When it comes time to close the deal, you've had all these meetings, you've had all this experience. You're in a much better position to do it. Now, as a contractor, I know, once again, it's an art, it's a business model. You have to be gauging who the customer is and what's your experience level.
We're always trying to read the customer to figure out, are we giving them too much information, not enough? At what stage do we trust them? What stage do we not trust them? Because they're all have different motivations. And it might be towards their friends, it might be towards money, it might be towards the owner doing a good job. And if they are, that's probably the best for us. If it is towards their friends, we're not one of them to be very good. But it is.
We talked about the wrap-up. Anything else there? We're starting to run short on time. So we talked a little bit about the wrap-up. So kind of leading up to this point in time is getting to what does it cost to do this job, whether it's a conceptual budget or it's a hard plan spec detailed to depth sort of job. We then get to the wrap-up part. And so this is talking a little bit about the organization that helps facilitate that. I won't spend a lot of time here because we touched on a lot of this stuff. But the first point is talking about discuss with the team where before you start the estimate, before you put in the first line of takeoff, before you put in the information, talk to the people who are going to be, the project manager who's going to run the job, talk to the salesman who's selling the job, and what sort of information they want out of it. Do they want just the number in the bottom right-hand corner, or do they want to be able to identify each line of work, each scope of work? Do you have to do it by phase? Do you have to do it by plan? All of these breakdowns. And so here we talk about, you take off the drawing by area, by phases, by system, an individual system. That's kind of the standard part. But one thing we'll do, for instance, on the data center work, the large jobs, we'll have 4 general foremen, each of which are running a $10 million scope of work. And so I have the estimate built in such a way that the medium voltage general foreman, we can say, here's your estimate. Well, if you don't review that with the estimator ahead of time, you don't have that information unless you go back and completely redo everything. And so there's a general organization that we're talking about in takeoff by that activated and sort by entity.
casino, they'll probably call me and take a look at it. Hotel, usually myself, housing, might be Mary and somebody at our office. And so probably get the team expert in there somewhere during the review. It's within our we review the specifications, we go through the sheets, we do the contract requirements, breakouts, and allowances. And a lot of that goes back to how you set this thing up too. You better know what the alternates are and what the breakdown is of the general contractor line when you start the estimate. You don't want to have to do too much stuff. You want to put it in there.
And that can be really different. There's an alternate that says use this entirely different distribution system and change all sorts of things. So you need to be on top of that right away at the beginning. Otherwise, you get to the estimate review part and there's no way to break it out. There's no way to generate that number.
We review all the quotes. Again, allow plenty of time. A lot of times we'll go back into the estimate work to satisfy the people reviewing it, make sure that we got the right number.
No matter how much time you allow it to number, it's still chaos right up until something gets signed.
And the real key is to not be guessing at the end. I mean, we will determine, hopefully, we have a number that we think it costs, and then we have a number that we think we're marking it up, and a number that we sell it. We don't want to be thinking this is what we sell it for, and we think the cost is something. We would like to know what we're pretty sure the cost is.
So with that, I guess are there any
Further questions that you may have?
So after you find out the rock increases the labor, you have an extra multiplier for your ROI or
Sure, we'll have an overhead profit line that we're looking at. And once again, we're always continuously comparing that to the market. Who's our competition? Who are we bidding against? What type of project is it? What's our risk? Right? There's a big relationship between risk and profit margin.
We'll usually have a margin to labor ratio. So we look at, we have 100,000, $2 million of labor, that's a very good ratio.
And then there's some element. Most often, the material part of the estimate tends to be very, very close, within a percentage. Where our huge risk comes in on the labor side, because labor can go over under by 10% or more. And so what Dave's talking about is looking at, if we've got $2 million worth of labor and we've got $200,000 profit on it, if we go 10% over on labor, we make nothing. If you have the same job that's got $20,000 on it, you can go 1/10 of 1% over. Significantly more risky proposal.
So that's where we look at the ratio of labor to the size of the whole project. That could change our margin that we put on the whole thing. Because you're not going to want to take an all-labor job at 10%. But you would be very willing to do a project that is 25% labor at 10%. You might be thrilled to have it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The execution is key at all. That's what a lot of functions within the company work on. Right from CAD, BIM, the prefab shop, to the packaging, how we purchase things. Some stuff we purchase is partially assembled, some isn't. There's a lot goes into it. How we buy our wire is parallel. There's pre-moved wire. There's pretty much
Probably 70 to 80% of the innovation that we're doing is looking at labor productivity. There is still some where what are the new materials and methods? Is there a new rigid assembly skill? Is there a new hanging assembly? How can we buy the material in a way, actually that's saving labor, or how can we buy the material in some way that's less expensive than the previous product was? But the vast majority of the time, project management-wise and ops-wise, is figuring out how can we do this with labor.
The one other thing I didn't really mention is the whole estimate job, 12-month job. Now let's do a labor curve. So you see how big is this, how big it could be a 10-man job, 20-man job, where is the peak of the labor, and can it be done? Because you start to look at congestion, it's like a lot of casino work get done, where they tell us 1 in 6 months. All of a sudden we're doing 3 shifts, kind of changes the estimate. We have overtime and shift pay.
You know, a 10-month job with 10 electricians and 10 electrician months. And if it's just those 10 electricians, it's very different productivity rate in those same 10 electrician months that peaks at 50. Because the productivity that happens when you have that sort of peak is very different. So the price tag on those 2 jobs is very, very different. And that's all part of the scheduling and sequencing. Well, usually, I mean, on the bigger projects, the general contractor quite often will include the schedule as part of the RFP. So they're going to say, here's how we plan on building this building, because you're going to give me a price, assuming you've got all the labor to do it in the schedule, and they will have a clause right there saying, we're not going to pay for any overtime or weekend work unless we change our schedule. And so they put the burden on you then to understand their schedule is different. And if you have to be working 2 shifts, if you need to be working weekends, if you have to work 10, they are going to expect that you get that included in the pay.
We load our estimate off, or we load our schedule off the estimate. That's how we do it when we get the job too. We take the estimate and we have the hours for underground. You can pick that up. It's in PVC. We have the hours, the lighting fixtures, branch circuit. We know what stage it's going to be. We feed it into the estimate or into the schedule. So that's how we build the schedule with the durations. And usually the general is set up when you think he's going to put an AC in, when the grid starts.
When the concrete gets poured.
Yeah, there's key things you look for on the schedule. The pores, the water type, the ceiling grid, the studs. Those things feed into where you plug the hours of the estimate. Then you understand the whole job.
Assuming you have that sort of control. So you and the general contractor will say, this is how we're going to build the building. We're going to start from the east and move to the west. And your panels may be all the way on the far west side of the building. Now, one thing we'll do is we'll load that schedule and we'll try to work with the general contractor and say, if you can move this chunk of work up that has this huge impact on us and try to, massage the schedule in something that works better for us. But it's a matter of how early are you on board, how far along is the construction. Some jobs they've already built the steel and it's well on their way before they even hire us.
On 4th Street housing, we were asked what we could do with the schedule and how we could up it. And we brought up that, hey, we would stud up the electrical rooms first on every floor and rock them. Then we can move up all these activities. You can get in here, 3 weeks sooner on each floor as they go up. And they did that. They wanted to do 3 floors of waterproof sheetrock because they did not have the work done yet. They finished these rooms off for us. It brought us to a different level of scheduling. Really let us get in and get all the brand new work in before the sheet metal actually boards starts. All the home runs done and everything, all in before any stud went up on the floor. Very efficient. Wide open work that we had. Good. Chad, thank you.
Thank you.
Picturing this being